Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of this Maya tutorial. Now this isn't going to... Fuck. It's not Maya. Switch over. Hi everyone, and welcome to a new series that I've put in place for this 3D 2D creative channel. This is in relation to the texturing tool Substance, created by Algorithmic, and they have multiple things going on with them. They have Substance Painter, which is this, Substance Designer, which is its sister, relative, dog, Substance Share, Substance Source, anything with Substance, and Alchemy I think it was. Is that it? There's Substance Share. I'm just going to take you guys through the many tools that there are quickly, and then we can get straight on with it. So like everything else, some things are the same as others. So we have the toolbar on the left, we have the 3D view on the left, and we have the 2D view on the right this time, connected to each other. The rotational axis is a little easier to figure out, only this time you have U and V in this one as well. On the bottom we have our shelf, so this concludes of everything that we would possibly need to use throughout this project. Anyway, we'll come into some of these later, including the skin. So much fun. On the right, we have the texture set list, the mesh maps, basically like the attributes editor and channel editor of Maya. So we're not really needing to relearn much. This goes for everything that we'll possibly use. Down here is mainly the logs and the histories and the other rendering settings that we have. On the top here, usually where the brushes are, and the other attributes for the tools on the left, we have do not pause the computation. So therefore, if you add anything more to this, it won't show unless you play this through. Next, we have the 3D/2D view. We can either show them both, either the 3D, the 2D, or swap them both, just for a different view. Maybe you work left to right or right to left. Either way. We need to change the view, perspective, or orthographic. If you are one of the old Habbo players, that's the only game I can think of right now. You can go to orthographic, go down, and it comes with this weird ass perspective, but I like it. It's really nice. We're just going to work with perspective for now because it's the one that everybody can kind of relate to. Now, I'm just going to mess around with this, but I kind of have a plan in place of what we're going to do. Firstly, when I get my project into my scene, as you saw last video, we got it all set up, went through the channels, and now we're just going to bake these this mesh together, and from that we will start texturing. So if we go to the right, go from layers to texture set settings, we are going to press bake mesh maps. Now what this does, brings up this dialog box. On the left we have our mesh maps, the different types of ones that we will need for texturing really nice models with really nice textures. Like I say, I practiced this before. I actually did the video. And we have the high version of this wheel from Maya, if you saw the last video, of exporting your objects. We have this in here. We're going to keep it there. We're going to bake it at a 2048 texture. Usually you can go a lot higher, but I'm just going to do it like that because I know not everyone's PCs are able to go that high. So I'm just going to bring myself down to you peasants. And then the maximum frontal distance, like I say, I will show this now, and you can pause the video if you want to look into that. We can average out the normals, ignore the back face. Basically the average normals are the normals that fly out here. You will see this later on when I come to do plants, or plantation for those nice speakers. Subsampling 4x4, so anti-aliasing method, that would, you can kind of see these settings in games where they smoothen out certain things. I can't really remember what. We're going to match by mesh name because we have the wheel low and we are going to be baking it with the wheel high. we need to make sure that Maya understands which mesh is which, or if there is a higher one, we know which one that's called at the end via its suffix. Going through each one, we don't really need to change much, but if we were to do a different kind of method of texturing with bigger objects or say an environment scene, then we might need this. We can change the ID baking parameters from the usual one to mesh ID / polygroup. I'll show you what happens here later on, because we don't really need it now. We're only working with one polygroup, but we'll just stick it there. Ambient Occlusion, that's just the self-made shadows within a object, not the actual shadow from whichever light we're using, but the self-made shadows. So yeah, the rest we don't really need to mess with, and I prefer not to mess with it. But we're just going to bake the selected texture, which is just one anyway. It will show you in real time as the baking takes place, so you know that everything looks well, goes well, and then afterwards you can kind of see where you went wrong. So in this one, we have this little problem here with the high mesh and the low mesh kind of clashing in a way, showing these very hard edges. As we can see, the smooth kind of normal here is from the high, but it's still clashing with the hardness of this low mesh, and it doesn't really show if you're zoomed out, but if you're a person to detail like I am, you will see this, and it's gonna look a bit meh. Let's see if we can fix this. And like I said, we're gonna go back to the max frontal distance. I don't need to worry about the rear distance as much, but in this case, I'm going to set it to 0.05, and I'm going to do the front distance at not 1, we don't want it that high. So if we want a 0.02, and see how that changes. Keep an eye on this part, see how it changes. Usually it's like testing water, you don't know what's going to happen unless you actually know fully what this is capable of and how changing it changes the look. See, that's not changed, and I still need to learn more about this, but for now we're just going to keep to the outside. First off, let me just show you why we bake our textures. So let's say if we went to a machinery, got plenty of stuff on there, it's got the machinery, it's got the dirt, there's plenty of things in here that we can tear apart and analyze in the meantime. So let me show you this first. Now I said that I was going to keep it on 2048, and that is right, but let me show you what happens at 4096. It increases the textile density, but it also increases, like you said, this texture here. This is the kind of stuff that you want to see in game comparisons when you go from what? PlayStation 3 to 4 to Xbox One, Xbox 360 to Wii to Nintendo DS. But yeah, that just increases textile density and brings out a lot more nicer quality. It's what everyone wants in like a very realistic model. So let me just stick this back to 128. My guy, look at the state of that thing. Let's put it back to 2048. Our standard texture, the usual industry standard texture that most things can actually handle. Why do we need to bake? We bake for details that we don't have to really fill in. And what I mean by this is for this. So we have our metal base, which is the yellow. We have the dust in the background, which you can't really see, but it is there. It adds a bit more detail to the thing. Gives it a little bit more earthly feeling. Dust, like I say, just adds dust. And we have the rust. Now the rust is the most important, not just because it's the most notable to change, but how it utilizes Substance Painter's baking powers to make it seem more realistic. Now keep an eye on this this bottom part here, and these parts on the spokes of the wheel, as well as this little combination of the circular rust collecting in the middle here. Now the reason why I say that is because each one of these inherits a specific feature from that baking. Now if I go to the right here and go into this rust, we have the color here, including the texture, whatever's on it, the height, the opacity, the roughness, metallic, whatnot. So if we go to this black and white thing here, it's the mask. So like I may have touched on in my Photoshop tutorial, is that whatever's white will show, whatever's black will not. If we go into the mask editor for this, and it comes with its own generator. Now the generator is basically what creates the textures for this. You can either put in certain masks, such as like dirt or dirt cavities, moss, rust, yada yada yada. Even if you put that in, we're still not done from there. You can still go into this and change so much about it. So we can go from a global blur, change out the blur, global balance to see how much coverage you want on your object, global contrast if you want to have a harsh edge or maybe something a little bit blurred out so it feels a bit more, I don't know, rubbed against, natural. Add a bit of texture if you like to. Ambient occlusion. Now we're starting to see the effects of the baking take hold. As we can see in here, I said there was going to be a collective circle here, but this is due to the ambient occlusion. If I turn that right down, you haven't got much. You've just got world space and possibly something else. We're going to turn that up. Curvature. Think of the ball here. If we turn that right up, it's going to get covered. Yeah. So if we turn that right down and turn up the curvature, the ball goes right up, and the curvature from this, but this doesn't because it was never originally curved to begin with. This was, all of these are, so that's why they're absolutely covered. These are, but not so much because they're a larger object that need to cover a larger space, or a larger span in this case. Let me turn down the curvature, the ambient occlusion. Okay, we're back to square one. The thickness, so we can apply the rust via the thickness, excuse me for that. So the thickest part here will be more covered than the thinnest parts, which could be the ends of these spokes, for example, because they are essentially the thinnest part. So think of it quite logically. Wherever the position gradient is, which is on the bottom, have I got a position gradient map on this? Okay, I've got a position gradient here, and I'm not really good with the color schematics for position grading, but from what I can see is that this purple and red here, that looks a little bit dark and dingy, is the bottom, and then the green is the top. I might have an idea where this is coming from, but I am not prone to guess. So I'm just going to put this back by pressing B, and by the way, M for material, and then I can press B to skip through everything. Anyway, we're coming back to this. We've done thickness, so we can see what happens there. Position, we can see what happens here. World space normals, this just basically applies to whatever's on top and leaves out whatever on the bottom, if you get my meaning. On the top of the spokes, but leaves out the bottom mostly. These textures underneath here, including the micro details, I've never touched on micro details, I don't really want to. I can add more of the texture balance or take it off. And you can add a bit more contrast, you can take that off as well. Brush pattern, yeah, we don't need to really mess about with this, but if you need to, then, you know, whatever tickles your fancy. The thing you can kind of notice here, and I'm going to actually semi-full screen this, is that all of these spokes are the same, and the reason is not just because of the world space, it's because there was just originally one spoke texture to begin with. If you didn't notice, we just had one spoke texture, even though there are, was it 3, 6, 7, 8 spokes, they all fall under one texture. Now if I went to go back into Maya and spread out each one of these UVs for a spoke, we'd have a different texture for each one of these. Now if you want to go into that kind of detail, you do that, that'll be great. Then you can add more texture, give it a bit more character, and add to your portfolio, if you will. So we go into a bronze corroded wheel. That looks really cool, something you would see on a statue. That'll be really cool. We actually have another bronze statue here, it's weird. Oh, I like that, it's a lot more a lot more used, but well kept. I like that. Okay, let's see if we can find something nice to use. Still painted, can we use that? Bit too much for me, I don't like that. Nope, too bad. Fabulous. Fabulous priest, damn, no thank you. Copper, let's try copper. Okay, funny enough, I like... Okay, I kind of like this, so copper 1, that's really nice. Shows a lot more detail as well. What we're going to do is we're going to add some texture to this. I like this middle part, this midsection here, which joins all the spokes, but it looks very plain. Like somebody said out of from Blizzard, who was working on Overwatch character design, he said there is a midpoint where the detail looks good, not too much, but not too little. So that's what we're going to do with this middle part. Now this part here is, yes, circular, but is UV unwrapped as a straight line. Now this helps a lot of people when texturing, especially when you want to become like a texture design artist and throw this into Substance Designer. We'll cover that later, but for now we're just going to add some detail to this. So if we click on a paint layer right here, it comes up transparent, so there's not much change. But what we're going to do is go into the project. I imported these earlier. We have these nice little decals here, what is it? Neoclassical decals, and I think they would look beautiful on this. So what we're going to do is we are going to get this, the neoclassical part of this, and we're going to add this to the height. And this is how the brush affects 3D space, and this is the alpha. The alpha hasn't changed, we've just added height. The alpha is here. If we add this now, it comes harder, but if we go into the brush settings above, we can add out the spacing a little bit more, and then from that we can start adding stuff. Okay, so now what we can do is add a complete straight line to this, and you can see how it affects on here. Okay, that's as straight as I can get it. Okay, I'm missing one. Let me just add this. I'll add this on the 3D view. What we can do is we can change either the normal layer, or we can add in a filter, but we're just going to change the blending layer to whatever we need to. Let me try this. Actually, I will keep that on for reference, but I will duplicate this, right click on the layer, add a black mask, but apart from having the copper as is, I want to turn up the base material height. Now, what that would mean, therefore, is whenever I apply a material to this, it will actually add the height in. So let me turn this down. What part could I edit? Turn down the spacing a lot for this, and then add it to the side. Okay, not perfect how I want it to be honest. Let me just turn up the spacing for that, and now we can just stretch this out a bit more. Okay, that might be the dodgiest wheel ever, but sure, I will fucking stick with it. You can even use a black brush and then take it away, then add it back on if you need to. Which actually is a very good thing to use. If you miss out something, then there's no harm in just erasing it with a mask. Okay, I prefer the other one. I like the other one. We're going to keep with that. I don't know why I like it, but I just like it. And let's just turn that normal part back on. It was just very nice. I don't know why I liked it so much. Like pearls. They're beautiful. So yeah, that is what we can do with this. We can add a few more details if we need to. What have we got right here? Oh my god, this is going to be so chaotic. Oh, I'm going to try this. Okay, I don't know what that did to it, but it seemed to completely F it up. I love it. I love it so much. It's so much fun. I don't know what it added it to, but sure, why not? Now, let's actually take this off. We got enough fun for now. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this look a little bit more authentic. So if I do a smart material in walnut, that looks very nice. We can then add a steel, scratch, stained, ruined. What have we got here? Oh, that looks really nice. Okay, we're going to use this. We're going to use the rust surface on the front, and then we're going to add the dented one on the back. So what we're going to do is we literally could just right click on here, add a black mask, go to the polygon fill, and then start clicking out specific quads. But this is very tedious. What you can do is you can either do triangular fill, polygon fill, mesh fill, or UV chunk fill. Now if we did the polygon fill, it would fill up the entire item. We don't want that. We can either do a mesh fill on the actual circular part here, this little spherical part that sticks out, or we can just fill it by UV. Just as good. Just as good. So now that's looking a little better, if I would like to say. I want to get this changed so the fibers are going around apart from out, because that's not really how it works, my guy. Like on these, sure, but not that. No thanks. What I'm going to do is now, like I said, I'm going to add the little piece of metal on here, like a kind of tire thing. But we're going to do ruin this time. We're going to ruin this boy. Yeah, that would seem a lot more authentic than just putting a rusted version on. It's very dented, very booted up. But now we need to do the exact same thing. So right click, add a black mask. This is very quick texturing, by the way. Usually I like to spend a little bit more time, but I'm on tutorial anyway, so it's not much of a worry. Oh, yep. So now we can use the quad fill tool and knock this down a bit. That was perfect. Yeah, so now we can see that that's just perfectly filled out. We'll do the next one. And please say that worked. Yes! Okay, so now that worked, but the only issue we've got left is we have someone here and it's added to the spokes accidentally. We don't want that. So what we do is press X or use this slider to go back. And what we will do is change our polygon fill mask tool to a mesh fill or a UV chunk. We'll do UV chunk. And then click there, and they're all gone, but the wheel still remains intact. And that's about it. What we can do after that is add in a, how can I say it? Rust fine, no. Let's say this. Say if we added another fill layer, and we changed up the base color to be, how can I say it? Let's have a dark brown that is going to be very muddy and horrible. So yeah, that looks pretty good. And then we can go into these different properties and change the height, change the roughness if we need to. I'm going to change the roughness just a tad. Metallic, just up a little bit, but not too much that's going to remain in the positives. Normal, what kind of normal? Is there any procedurals? Texture, gringers, no, only hard surfaces, and I don't really want to use them. For the procedurals, I will change something to the height, and I really want to use the, have we not got a, oh my god, what do you call it again? Perlin noise, no, something close to that. Let's just use a grunge. So concrete, nah, I don't want to use grunge concrete on like dirt. Fractal sun base, that was it. So if I use a fractal sun base, I can add a texture over the wood fibers, so it completely takes out the effect. So if you get what I mean. So if we didn't have the effect, then it would just be wood fibers. But now we can actually go into this and mess about with it. We are going to turn this right up, I think. Yeah, as far as we can. Doesn't really matter about the inversion. And then what we can do is change the noise parameters, turn down the roughness, or turn it right up if we need to. I'm going to change the global opacity just so it doesn't cover everything. Change the minimum level and then the max level. And can I invert the height? What I'm going to do is add the levels. Change the affected channel to height, since we're messing with the dirt right now, and then we can invert it so it looks like it's coming out apart from digging into the wheel. So let me just do this. I will add a smart mask now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this, and I can add a black mask, so that's what I'm going to do, so it hides all the dirt. And then what I'm going to do is add one of these masks in. So what I should do it on the bottom. Paint, stain, scratches, surface rust, ground, dirt. Yes. So we can add this in now, and it will apply it to wherever the ground is, which is down here. Now, this is great and all, actually completely fine, but we kind of want it everywhere else as well. Not too much though, but I want to add it elsewhere, like on the spokes of the wheel and the middle part. And yeah, we can go from there really. Yeah, that's not bad, but like I say, it still messes about with the... There we go. So if we actually mess about with these different big sliders, and then we can actually add some detail to this. So it's starting to look very dirty and dingy and everything like that. So it's starting to look really what it should do. Don't add too much to the thickness. Ambient occlusion. Do I really need to? Yeah, I do. Turn down the texture on here, turn down the texture on there if you need to, but yeah, we should be fine. We should be really fine. This is actually looking really good. I'm about to sneeze. Anyway, I never really figured out what the overlay blending mode of the texture does. We'll leave it out for now. We don't really need a blur. We can change the balance if we need to. This looks like it's been through hell and back. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I like it. We can go further into it if we need to, but for now it looks dirty as hell. Then you can go in and add textures such as dust or damage or anything like that. We can add a lighter wood and turn it into a edge damage. We can do that. Actually, we can do that right now. And change that up. So if we change the base color to maybe a very light color. Yep. And then say we add a black mask to this upper wooden layer. Then we add the edge damage. Now we're starting to get a bit more character in this. It's starting to look very battered and bruised, and it's so good. So good. But the only issue is now that it's applied to nearly everything, which we don't really want. Because the steel ruins on top, that just saves us. But yeah, now that we have that, I've went through quite a few things. We can use different tools. We can even like add blur, gouache. I don't know how to say that personally. Gradient hue. We can even add branches in. My guy, look at that. We can add branches in and stuff. That's really cool. Can I add the branches, please? I really want to add the branches. Please. No, I want branches. Oh my god, yes. But it does take away some of the opacity from it, so we will not be messing with that anytime soon. Oil leaks, screw bolts, and other oil leaks and stuff like that. Autumn leaves, anything you want really, just do it. The best one is the particles because it shows burns and everything, and it's so much fun. Then it will actually look like it's been through some interesting times, to say the least. So after we've done with our project, I will then check it around, see if anything's wrong with it, which doesn't seem that, and I will press F10. This just renders out the entire thing. A little bit muddy for this very nice clean back alley, but what I'm going to do is go into the Studio 05, my personal favourite, and have a look around, see if there's anything that needs changing. It looks really nice. I don't know about you guys, but I really like that. We can actually even add it to this normal studio as well. That looks a little bit more authentic. But personally, I don't want the distraction in the back, especially if I'm rendering out for a portfolio. Especially not that one. Oh my god. No. Barely see the floor. Yeah, I'm going to keep with my my usual favourite. At least it's very planted in place and I can see stuff. This is all the rendering. But I will cover this later because I feel like I've got very far onto the video now to start editing it after about 33 minutes. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I will leave you with plenty to think about and consider. Substance has a number of student licenses that you can download and apply for. I think they still do the idea where you have to send in your student ID or any form of proof that you actually study at said facility. I had to send in a photo of my ID, but that's how I still do it. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I will leave a link for the education license in the description if I remember. And that is about it, but I thank you guys for watching and keeping up. Thank you so much for the support. Oh my god, it's been amazing. The 3D community, you guys are amazing on Facebook, and I thank you all my friends so much. Love you guys, and have a great night, morning, evening, Hanukkah, Christmas, Halloween, Pride, and life. Bye bye.